Hi everyone, I'm going to get started. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, awesome. So thank you all very much for coming this afternoon and for venturing through the snow. It looks very pretty, but it doesn't look, it's probably not as nice as it looks out there. So thank you. My name is Andrea and I'm the Recruitment and Admissions Officer for the Faculty of Information. So the way today's session is going to work is I'm going to start off with a program overview. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we have to offer here in the Faculty of Information, and then we're going to get into more detail of all of our concentrations. And our most amazing students are here to tell you all about the concentrations, what they're about. And then after this session, we're going to head down one floor down to the 4th floor, where there'll be an informal Q&A session where you'll be able to ask more detailed questions about each of the concentrations, as well as the admission requirements and so on. So to start off, this fun chart here is basically our faculty in a nutshell. So we have the Masters of Information program. I'm going to talk mostly about that because that's what the session's about. And then Masters of Museum Studies, which was this morning. How many of you are interested in both? Nice. Awesome. Cool. So the MI program, there are a few different pathways that you can take. There's the concentration pathway. And with this pathway, students are able to choose either 1 or 2 concentrations to focus on. So of the 8 concentrations, you are able to choose up to 2. Typically, we recommend choosing 1 and then taking courses in any of the concentrations that you're interested in, only because it does offer more flexibility, but it's completely up to you. No matter what concentration you are in, you are able to take courses in any of the other concentrations. You are applying to the MI program, not to a concentration, so you can add, remove, change concentrations anytime throughout your program. So don't feel like just because you've chosen one that you're stuck in that concentration forever. With the concentration pathway, you are also able to, or with any of the pathways, students are able to take up to 4 courses outside of the Faculty of Information. So if there's another department at U of T that you're interested in taking courses with, at the graduate level, so there's a graduate level courses, you are able to take courses with them as well as part of your degree. Then if you don't want to focus specifically on a concentration, you don't have to. We have the general program option, and you can take courses, again, in any of the concentrations you're interested in without having to follow a set of required courses to meet those requirements. And then you can either choose a thesis option or a co-op option. The co-op option, our careers officer, Alex House, will talk about a little later. But essentially the way that works is you would alternate study and work terms. So your first 2 terms would be study, so fall, winter. Your next 2 terms would be work, so summer, fall. And then your next 2 terms would be study, winter, summer. You are able to take, some students who take the co-op sometimes take 1 course or so over the summer. So if you did that, you could potentially finish a semester early, but it depends. It could be kind of a tough option, but it's up to you. So then there's the co-op option or the thesis option. You don't have to decide now what option you're interested in. You can decide once you're in the program, or you do decide once you're in the program. So usually in about your winter term, if you want to do the thesis option, you want to start thinking about your thesis topic, about finding a supervisor to help you with that research or that thesis. But again, you don't decide that now. You can start the program in your fall term and then decide from there what you want to do. And then for those of you who express interest in the combined degree program, there's the Masters of Museum Studies. So instead of 4 years, if you did the 2 degrees separately, it would take you 3 years. So you're doing both degrees in 3 years. If you decide, for example, in your first year of the MI program, that you then want to apply to the Museum Studies program, you can do that in your first year. And that is because the way the 2 programs work is you alternate study. So your first year would be 1 program, the second year would be the 2nd program, and then the 3rd year is a combination of both. So if at that point you decide you want to apply to the Museum Studies program, you still can. It really does fit well to be the Museum Studies program to be within the Faculty of Information, because a lot of those topics really do blend well with each other, which you probably heard this morning. So unlike the MI program, you're not choosing a concentration. You're delving into all of those areas of focus, and they're all areas that are relevant within the museum studies industry. And then they also have either the exhibition or thesis option, and then they have an internship option over the summer, which is 12 weeks over the summer, which is also optional. With both of these programs, the MI and the Museum Studies program, we have collaborative specializations or collaborative program options. These are joint partnerships that we have with other departments at U of T. So it's just a way for you to further specialize your degree. So a lot of times what would happen is your elective courses would usually be within one of these specializations or topic areas. So once you're admitted, or at the same time as applying to an MI or MSc program, you can apply for a collaborative specialization at the same time. You do have to be admitted to both. Or you can apply to a collaborative specialization at any time throughout your program as well. So you don't have to worry about applying to any of them now. You can apply later on if you decide maybe you wanted to add a specialization. So when you graduate, your diploma will denote the specialization as well. So you get a certificate for the completion of that specialization. A lot of the deadlines are ongoing, with the exception of the book History and Print Culture, which has an April 1st deadline. So if you plan on applying to that for your first year, just want to keep that in mind, that it is due April 1st, and Environmental Studies as well. Those are the two that have set deadlines. The rest of them are ongoing. Again, you can just apply to them anytime throughout your program. Yeah, does anyone have any questions about the specific program options? Make sense? No. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our concentrations. Samantha's our first speaker, and she's here to talk to you about the Archives and Records Management concentration.
Hi, I'm Sam, and I'm in the second year of the ARM concentration. And so it's like two areas, but they're really closely related. So both concerned with records from creation to preservation. So records can really be anything that individuals or organizations are creating. So the things you're taking notes on, those can be records, letters or meeting minutes, even on the digital side, like any of the documents that you have saved to your computer or the emails you're sending. All of these are the kinds of records that could end up in archives. So with the records management side, it's more concerned with the early stages of records. So you'll be working in organizations and helping them understand how to organize their records, and then making decisions about what's important to keep for both short term and then how and when to dispose of those, and then what you should be keeping for long-term preservation. And those long-term records move on to archives. So in the archives side, there you're making decisions again about what's important to keep, and then also concerned with how to make those records accessible to the researchers coming into your institution. So arranging and describing them, creating finding aids that detail what's in your collection so people are easily able to search what you have. So with the courses in this concentration, you've got a first year course that's Concepts and Issues, which is your broad introduction to the field that just covers all the different areas that you might come up against. And then the other courses go into more specific details. So there's one on records management, that's the organizational records. There's both an arrangement and description course and a metadata course, and you have the option to take one or the other, but many people take both because they complement each other pretty well. And that's on describing those records and making them searchable and accessible. And in your second year, you have a required course on appraisal. So that's making those tough decisions about which of the records are important to keep for long term and that future researchers will want to see. And for your electives, the other courses that you're taking, as Andrea mentioned, the part that I really liked about the program is that you can take from other concentrations, so you're not specifically set on archives and records management if you don't want to be. So I've taken courses from the library stream and policy and museums, and it's really up to you, whatever your interests are, that you can sample across these different areas. With some examples of the archives electives that I've enjoyed, there's one on digitized archives for minoritized materials. So it was looking more at the accessibility side of archives, but also concerned with how to balance that with people's desire for privacy. So what it means when you're creating digital archives and putting all these things online, and maybe those groups don't want their records so visible, how you make those decisions. There's also some courses over the summer. So there's one on audiovisual archives that looks at things like film recordings or sound recordings that are coming into your archives, and the more special considerations you need to make with those. So there's more particular ways of describing them and making preservation decisions for special types of media, and that gives you a good overview into those courses as well. And besides courses, there are also a number of student groups, and I've been involved in a number of them. With the Moving Image one, there's the Association of Moving Image Archivists. There's also the Association of Canadian Archivists. We've got the student chapter here. So there are a number of student groups you can get involved in as well, and I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards about the concentration as well as more of these student groups. Thank you.
Okay, culture and technology. Make the screen look black.
Sounds good. All right, hi guys. So my name is Curtis, and as you can probably tell, my concentration is culture and technology. So in this concentration, we study the intersections of, you guessed it, culture and technology. So in other words, how do humans impact technology, and how does technology impact humans? So for example, in your first semester, you're going to be taking a class called, you guessed it, culture and technology, right? And so in this program, you're going to do an implosion exercise, and it's where you take an everyday technology of your choosing, and you actually examine the political, economic, labor, environmental dimensions. And it's actually really interesting, the things that you can learn from this. So I chose my credit card because I use it more than I should. Mood, right? So I was actually really interested to find out the political and economic aspects of the actual plastic that's being used to make this. And there's so many really interesting things that I actually was able to discover. To give another example of what we kind of study in this concentration, how many people use Lyft or Uber? Yeah, okay. So we behave a certain way when we're in the car because there's a rating that's associated with us that kind of impacts our future with the platform. Don't answer this question, but self-reflection, if any of you have ever had a friend who was acting rowdy in the car and you've had to chastise them because you don't want them to ruin your rating. Well, isn't that interesting that we have a platform, this immaterial object that is not only changing the way that you behave, but is actually, in a way, causing you to enforce certain behaviors upon others. So taking that aspect and applying it to different areas of the intersections of culture and technology, you can realize really, really fascinating things. So that's what my favorite thing was about this concentration. In the final semester of your program, you're going to be taking a class called, guess what, Culture and Technology 2. And in this in this class, you're going to be doing a knowledge mobilization project. And so you're going to take something that you wrote or researched on throughout your entire degree, and you're actually going to make a plan to actually take that research and make social change with it. So that's what makes culture and technology a great secondary concentration or primary concentration if you're deciding to do two, like I did, because you can take aspects from other concentrations and you can use that as your tools to for your knowledge mobilization. Jobs that you can get out of this concentration: communications, consultants, working in not-for-profit, government, so on. It all depends on what you do and how you take culture and technology, because there's so many aspects to it. You can explore it in any way that you want, which is why I really like it. If you have any more questions about the concentration, come and talk to me later. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Namir.
Thanks, Curtis. So I think Curtis has done a really good job explaining the concentration, so I won't expand on that too much, but what I will tell you a little bit about is sort of how I ended up here and in the concentration, and what my experience has been with culture and technology and taking it back to the workplace. So I'm working right now. So I work at Ryerson Library. It's actually my second career. Before that, I was a computer animator. I used to work on children's cartoons. Does anybody know Bo on the Go? Yes? Lunar Jim? Okay. Well, when you go home, YouTube it. No, just kidding. So the thing that I liked about culture and tech was this really interesting combination of theory and practical, right? So you are doing the things where you're talking about, well, what does Uber mean for society? What does Lyft mean for society? What about sidewalk labs? You know, the Momo thing. Does everybody know what Momo is? Yeah, okay. So it's terrifying. Don't look it up on YouTube. But we talk about these things. And what I would do is I would take those issues, take it back to Ryerson Library. I run a number of their makerspaces there, and I would translate that for students. I would talk to students about these issues in technology. And I didn't really know how to do that before taking some of the courses in culture and tech. So that's a real kind of like practical, manageable skill that I grabbed from this. And that's, you know, my context is Ryerson Library, but that's important everywhere, right? That ability to translate what technology means for people that aren't necessarily immersed in that is very, very valuable in education, in policy, in the private sector. It's needed everywhere. So I tell people about this, and they're like, "Oh, so you're a manager?" And I'm like, "No, I consider C&T as a concentration that trains leaders, that trains thought leaders in technology," and I've found that to be very true. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm around as well if you have any questions about what I do at Ryerson. Happy to answer anything. Thanks.
So we are Kimberly. I'm Caroline. Anyway, so if
We've got name tags. You can sort it out later.
So if you're worried that you don't belong in library and information science because you're too loud, you don't have glasses, or you're not interested in books, we want to assure you that these things are not mandatory. Though strong spectacle game never hurt. What we do think is essential to succeeding in the program is a fathomless curiosity and a desire to be versed in the myriad of issues related to the information life cycle. So this is the creation, the representation, organization, management, dissemination, and preservation, and its interplay with social, economic, political, and technological forces. If this is something that sounds like it interests you, then welcome. You found your people.
If you're worried that your undergraduate degree or work experience may not seem like it's enough, then we want to assure you that LIS students hail from a wide range of professional backgrounds and academic interests. Caroline comes from nursing and has a very serious arts and craft game going on the side. And I was a former high school teacher, and I'm a comic book nerd. What we want you to know is that you'll be surprised by how relevant, useful, and unexpected your backgrounds may be as you progress through the concentration. And we encourage you to look deeply into your own personal lives for inspiration.
Some of you may be wondering who hires LAS students, and your skills are needed in academic libraries, public libraries, government and advocacy, culture and media, finance, law, and health.
Your required courses will cover all of the fundamentals, and electives will allow you to do a deep dive. And we all know that we are people who are not afraid to dive deep into the literature and have it surround us and focus on either a type of library audience, such as public or academic, or engage with important contemporary topics, such as information and digital literacies, the evolution of reading practices, or outreach and advocacy. If you're willing and you're able, we'd strongly recommend taking a course or two from one of the other concentrations discussed here today, because it's a great way of viewing information through a different lens. So if you're still wondering why you should choose LAS, we leave you with this.
Now more than ever, the world needs
people who want to help others, whether they be a 6-year-old constructing a diorama of a working volcano, or a medical specialist who needs help researching and synthesizing the latest medical journals in order to save lives.
people who have the knowledge to organize, steward, and manage information in service to their communities, bridging the gap between people and resources.
People who understand the value of information and freedom of speech and the relationship between the two. And finally,
people willing to fight for information over misinformation.
Thank you, and we'll be both around later if you want to talk. Thanks. Sorry.
Hello, can everyone hear? So I am from the user experience design concentration, and then I want to start with a question. Why did user experience become a big thing in the industry? It's actually a pretty young field, and it's probably around for like 20 years if you count the UX industry. It's called human factors, and then there's also the behavioral psychologists who do UX work. But we came in because consumers nowadays have a lot of choices, and companies are in intense competitions to fight for their customers. And UX provides them with an advantage. And also, industries nowadays adopt a more humanistic approach to their products and services. And technology that filled up, because in the past, engineers and computer scientists design products because there are no other options for the users. So they are very glitchy, but users have to use them anyway. So we user experience designers come in and fix all the problems the people before us left. And also want to go into why do UX in academia? Because we apply a lot of real science in the work that we do. We use the behavioral psychology, human factors methodologies to solve real life problems. And in this program, you will be able to experience what it feels like to work with real life clients. And currently we're taking INF 2192. So we're working with real community partners and in collaboration with their partners to address business problems for these organizations. And this is a very good experience for students who want to get work experience during their program of study. And also, I want to let everyone know that just in this year, we have a new user experience design studio. And it's a space that's open to user experience design students, and you can run your usability tests there. You can invite people for interviews, and I highly recommend everyone to take a look when you have time. Yeah.
If you come on the tour, I take you to it.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks a lot, Danny. So she did a great job of overviewing what UX is. I'm going to talk a little bit about why I really love the concentration. So as she said, there's a lot of focus on tangible work experience. So the partners that we have throughout the projects in school is a really great way to start applying a lot of the skills that you're learning in class. And then, as Andrea briefly introduced, the co-op option is also great, not for all students, but for a student that sees a concentration path and also maybe has an idea about the work that they want to do in the industry, what they want to get in. It's a really great way to take advantage of the great careers coach that we have here in the faculty. They sort of help you, prepare, make the right resume for the right position, and then also help you for interview coaching and stuff like that as well. So for me, I had the opportunity to do a co-op at Autodesk, which is in the Mars Discovery District, pretty close to here. And I got to work as an experience designer there for 8 months. So usually you can do 4 months at 2 different companies or an 8-month block at one company. And I thought the 8 months was great. I got to sort of see what would it be like to work in this UX field for a year. And it was so great to just be able to know, okay, this is working for me, and I want to kind of continue down this career path. And for some other students, even if the co-op wasn't the greatest, at least they walk away with that learning experience of, I was there, I did it, and now I know what my next steps are. Another thing that I think is really important is you see these concentrations, and for me originally, I'm like, do I have to like fit perfectly in one, or there's people taking 2? But what I really learned is that no employer is going to ask you, oh yeah, so what was your concentration at the iSchool? They mostly care about your skills and what you present. So take a look at all of the courses throughout all the concentrations, and you can really make, well, this is personal advice, not everyone has to do this, but you can kind of create your own concentration as well. Pick and choose if you're interested in databases and UX. You can do a combination of both, for example. And the last piece of advice also for UX specifically, like Danny kind of mentioned, there's room for there's room outside of just the industry working for a company. So a lot of people do research or continue on to do a PhD after. So definitely don't feel that if some peers are getting co-op positions or going to work, that's the only path. There's definitely more than one. Yeah, and that's all. We'll be downstairs.
Yeah.
A lot of questions to be answered. Thank you.
ISD is next. Okay, come on up.
So we're not the same people.
So I'm Eric, and this is Alan, and we'll be talking about. So we're from the ISD concentration. So information systems play a crucial part in our everyday lives. For many businesses and organizations, innovations in these, information processes and systems are crucial for the competitiveness as well as the improvement of the organizations. So I'll be talking about ISD and what you'll be learning in ISD. So you'll learn how to analyze, design, and implement an array of systems used to manage all kinds of information in today's society, as well as solving problems in businesses and complex organizations. You'll be responsible for bridging the gap between businesses and IT. So as an ISD professional, you'll be the middle person. You'll understand the needs of the business and the clients, but also by gathering the business requirements from users, analyzing and defining their needs. But at the same time, you'll be translating these into specifications that can be implemented to help organizations be more successful. You'll also be exploring and understanding the possibilities, the limitations, and the trade-offs needed when designing these information systems, and the benefits, the trade-offs, and how they're inherent throughout the lifecycle development process. You'll also analyze the implications and impacts of systems on issues such as privacy, security, and how it affects the way users behave with these information systems. And you'll also strategically make use of data for data-driven decision-making. So some of the roles or job titles that ISD professionals hold are wide-ranging. So industries such as the financial services, technology, healthcare, government, nonprofits, and more. And some job titles include business analyst, systems analyst, information architecture, and data analyst. So for me, I had the opportunity to have a co-op at the Ministry of Transportation. And throughout this term, I had one of the courses that I took was INF 1343, database modeling and database design. So while the co-op placement that I had wasn't necessarily ISD related, I had the opportunity to apply my ISD skills and the theories that I learned from the classroom to help improve business processes within the ministry. And I found that really insightful. So if you have any questions about co-op or ISD, you can find me.
Okay. My name is Alan. I guess building on what Eric has said, I just wanted to introduce myself in terms of where I come from. I'm both in the LIS concentration and ISD, but I did my co-op at the Archives of Ontario, and I'm currently working in policy with the government. So I kind of cross several concentrations, and that's the perspective that I'm trying to bring to this particular section. Although I think everyone seems to agree that the strength of the program as a whole is it's very multidisciplinary, and you can touch a lot of aspects of information and thinking about frameworks for studying information in this program. I think it's one of the strengths of the program. So as an ISD student, I would encourage you to think about all the concentrations you've heard about so far, and what are some of the ways of looking at information that you see from LIS, from ARM, from KIPS, from Culture and Technology, that could help you be a better manager or a better in-between between the technologists and the business analysts. And particularly for LIS and ARM, if you're interested in working in a library and archives, the future is going to be digital, and thinking about how IT systems influence how people find information in your institution, how your institution organizes information, and the work processes that are required to access information. And even in government policy, having legislative mandates to produce a program depends on the technology that enables you to actually facilitate that program. So even in policy, you're thinking about the way IT systems and information systems and how they're designed can impact the program delivery options that you ultimately end up choosing. And again, maybe you'll probably keep hearing this, but like think about the other concentrations. If even if you're coming here knowing exactly what you want to do, speak to all I guess eight concentrations, find out about what classes they really like, see if there's anything you can take from them, and build your program around being exploring the Faculty of Education as a whole. And again, my name's Alan, and I'll also be downstairs if you have any questions. Thanks.
Knowledge management and information management. AMIM.
Hi guys, my name is Richie, and I'll be talking about the KMIM concentration. By choosing this concentration, you're going to learn a lot of theoretical frameworks and models that a lot of companies seldom understand but do need. Theories like knowledge management, knowledge sharing, knowledge transfer, and knowledge mobilization, sense making, and decision making. Paired with the tangible skills you're going to get within and outside the classroom, you're going to be able to gain expertise on knowledge access management, metadata-enabled search, resource discovery, records management, because there's a lot of overlap, like my colleagues have said, and information management as well. With these skills, you'll be able to develop strategic KMIM programs that will aid in designing and using information systems. Overall, I think the KMIM program develops a very unique and valuable way of thinking, both strategically and when it comes to problem solving. It may seem too theoretical at times, but when supplemented with the co-ops, practicums, internships, or volunteering opportunities,
as well as research papers or projects, you have the opportunity to put theory into practice. And I hope. Image?
Yeah, so
Awesome. Okay. So to me, this is what KMIM really represents, like when done effectively and to the nth degree. So essentially, you want to turn data into leverageable, actionable information, turn that information into institutional knowledge, and the fourth step is you want to help an organization act with a sense of wisdom, which to me means when an organization operates with a heightened sense of foresight, they're able to make sense of their environment faster than their competitors, and change to that rapidly or adapt to that rapidly changing environment outside. And I just want to shift to my personal experience from the program. So given my coursework and my co-op experience, I think there's a massive shift going on in both public and private industries. They want to manage their information more effectively, whether it's because of compliancy issues, like because of the GDPR and other policies like it. Companies don't want to get fined for holding information too long that they shouldn't be holding. Other organizations see this as an opportunity not just to be compliant, but also manage their information effectively so they can extract maximum value out of it throughout its life cycle. In terms of my favorite courses, I really enjoyed Information Systems, Services, and Design. It's a first-year mandatory course that I found it very useful and very practical. Metadata schemas and applications was also very interesting. I also took a bunch of policy courses just because I found it, again, policy nerd, I found it very interesting, and it really applied to what I was doing while I was at my co-ops. And you will also have to do systems or workshops. The two that I really enjoyed were systems thinking and open data, open government. I thought they were quite practical in terms of exposure to certain standards and practices, and they translated really well into industry-specific practices. And they kind of gave me a new way of thinking and approaching problems, and it also gave me insight into what I think is a very important government-led initiative. So, you're going to learn a lot of interesting theories, models, and frameworks, and with that, I think there's a wide array of jobs you can apply for. From my own personal experience, from, again, doing co-op and doing my own research, business analyst, data analyst, records manager, project manager, technology consulting, compliance-related roles, systems design, or even research jobs. So it really depends on how you want to carve out your path to the iSchool, because with that, you'll be able to land whatever job you want. And some advice outside of coursework and outside of the co-op. I think it's important to kind of step outside your comfort zone if you decide to come here, because that's where you're going to grow the most and learn the most about yourself. It's important to understand what you like, but it's just as important to understand what you don't like. And do things that will make you uncomfortable. I know we all know that dirty word networking. Not a lot of people are fans of it, and neither am I. If you are, good for you. You're a rare breed. But if you're like me, focus on quality and not the quantity of the relationships you're trying to make here. Second, I think there's often a misinterpretation when it comes to KM being like a hard skills technical program. It's not that. It's not meant to be that. The purpose of KMIM is to leverage technology. So the better you are with technology, the more developed your technical acumen is, the better you're going to be at your job, the better you're going to be as a KMIM professional. Lastly, get involved, join groups, join clubs. I served on the student council as the chair of professional development. I learned a lot. It was a great learning experience, and I urge you all to get involved in some way, shape, or form if you decide to come here. That's all I have to say. If you want to reach out to me afterwards, feel free. Thank you.
Here for SIP.
Hi everyone, my name is Brittany. I am Hazel, and we are two first-year students in the Critical Information and Policy Studies concentration, also known as SIPs. So I have this, you don't have to actually answer this, but in your head, who here has felt kind of trapped by their cell phone provider, like Bell and Telus? They feel like they pay too much, but if they went somewhere else, you'd just be paying the same amount anyway. I don't know if people can relate to that. I can. Or after you Google something, you start seeing ads for it everywhere on the internet. I think we can all probably relate to those things, and the reason for that is because From the moment you wake up in the morning to the moment you go to sleep, you're involved in information systems, and that is one half of the SIPS program. The other half is policy, and the best way to think about policy is that it's the infrastructure for society. Good policy works invisibly, making our society function very smoothly. But just as when your streetcar breaks down or there's another TTC issue, when policy isn't working, not only are the effects noticeable, but they're often harmful. As a SIP student here at the Faculty of Information, you'll be some of the few people trained in this intersection between information systems and policy. Hazel and I are both interested in a lot of similar things, like operational policy and telecommunications policy, and topics like privacy, surveillance, and internet governance. But at the iSchool, if those things aren't your thing, the options are endless. You can study broadband access, digital inclusion, data discrimination, intellectual property, copyright, consumer rights, and even environmental data use, plus a zillion others that wouldn't fit on the page. So often you'll find also that what you do study intersects with a lot of really important ethical issues. Not only will you be able to learn about the subjects that you're most interested in, but the iSchool helps you prepare for the real world. We are both fairly career-oriented people, and we've been able to learn how to put our classroom skills into the workplace. We're both part of the co-op program, and we'll be starting that in the summer. So that's been great. Hazel and I are both working as policy analysts, Hazel in telecommunications policy, and I'm in operational policy. So yeah, we've been able to put our skills into the workplace. That said, if maybe you want to do something to further your academic career, there is of course a thesis option, like mentioned earlier. And really, it's a choose your own adventure kind of faculty, and there's a ton of support along the way. So pass it off to Hazel.
So more on the actual day-to-day life at the iSchool. So with SIPS, you can kind of complete all of your required courses in the first year, as long as you take all of them plus 1 or 2 electives, meaning that you're free to take, like, use your second year to take electives. You can do co-op, you can do thesis, you can do practicum, pretty much anything your heart desires. So the way that our policy courses are structured really gives you the freedom to explore the topics and issues that you really want to. So take advantage of that. So most of my projects this semester, I'm just kind of doing whatever is interesting to me. So because I know I'm going into a telecommunications position, I've been doing a lot of telecom projects. So Brittany and I, for our favorite course, we really loved Knowledge and Information Society, which is taught by Dr. Leslie Shade, as it gives you a really good foundational knowledge. So if you're in a different stream, I would kind of recommend taking that one. If you kind of get this knowledge of the Canadian and international policy scape and the issues that you could be exploring during your time here, regardless if you're in SIPS or not. So if you're interested in taking it as your sole stream, I also, as everyone else has said, would recommend taking electives that are outside of your wheelhouse. So I took it's sort of an intro to ISD. It's an information systems design course. I took it last semester, and for this semester, I am using the information I learned in that class in all of my projects. And for projects that you're going to be seeing here at SIPS, you're going to have policy briefs, you'll have research projects, group presentations, analyses, that sort of stuff. So every course is often quite different, and it has different assignments and different timelines. And fortunately, that's actually what can make balancing your semester a little bit easier. So for advice, I'm going to say again, be as involved as you can. I know it's hard to balance life, school, work, and extracurriculars, but I would definitely recommend finding 1 or 2 things that you're really called to at the iSchool. So one of my biggest regrets in my undergrad was that I didn't really get involved in anything, and I kind of just floated through and did my classes and did my work. So when I got here, I really made the effort to make sure that I did get involved in as many things as I could without, killing myself. So this year, Brittany and I are both editors with the iSchool's peer review journal, the iJournal, and I would definitely recommend that. It looks awesome on your resume because you get to edit for a peer review journal, or I would recommend maybe submitting a paper to it. And we're also involved with Librarians Without Borders, the U of T chapter. And don't be afraid to get involved in things outside of the iSchool. So for instance, Brittany and I, as we've done everything together, competed in a cybersecurity policy competition in New York in November. It was awesome, and the iSchool is super supportive of that sort of thing, competitions, conferences, whatever your heart desires. You can probably get support for it. So career-wise, we can't tell you what it's like yet. We haven't started our co-ops and we haven't graduated, but every large organization, whether it's public or private, needs policy analysts and policy advisors. Especially now more than ever, kind of organizations are realizing that policy experts are needed, where people are more concerned about privacy, they're concerned about cybersecurity, they're concerned about how to organize their information systems in a way that's going to benefit everyone in their organization. So many professionals in the field that we've actually spoken to already have discussed the need for humanities and policy students in the information positions, as our perspective and problem-solving abilities are quite often in short supply. So again, we'd like to stress that this program is so adaptable that no matter where your interest is, there's a place for you. So we'll be downstairs when you want to talk to us, and thank you.
All right, and last but not least, Francesca, human-centered data science.
So hi everyone, my name is Francesca. I'm actually in the KM concentration here at the iSchool, and I previously did a BA in International Studies at Glendon York University, so I don't have a lot of technical background, but somehow I am here to represent the new human-centered data science concentration, and that is in large part due to the courses and skills that I have gained while I was at the iSchool. So what is human-centered data science? It is basically the ability to deal with large, complex data sets and then take that data and take that information and put it into user-centric visualizations and create meaningful insights from it. So it also involves looking at ethics and policy options. Again, coming from a KMIM background, it wasn't necessarily where I thought I'd end up in the iSchool, and I am graduating with part of the KMIM concentration, but I ended up augmenting my degree with a lot of different other concentration courses. I originally came in as part of KMIM and the archives concentration. Ended up not staying in archives and ended up taking programming, data modeling, database design, data analysis, and somehow loving it. So really, where does this fit in today's world? As I'm sure we're all aware, artificial intelligence and machine learning are expanding dramatically, and they're becoming a lot more commonplace. Not just in IT fields, but you're seeing them everywhere. They're being used in education, marketing, healthcare, finance, absolutely everywhere. So what you can do with this kind of concentration is be able to use those different technologies, understand those different technologies most importantly, and manage them. So be able to see what the implications of them are. So for example, I'm sure, well, let's see, how many of you here have Facebook? Okay, and I'm sure we're all also aware of the scandal with Cambridge Analytica. Human-centered data science looks at issues like that. It's probably a very good example of misuse of data science and data analysis. So in this situation, what happened was Cambridge Analytica mined profiles, Facebook profiles, to create basically an idea of what the voter base was and then use that in marketing manipulation. On a more positive end of the spectrum, it can be used in places like healthcare. So I'm sure we're also aware in Ontario there's been a lot of concerns raised about the healthcare wait times, performance of our healthcare system and hospitals. Data science can really help that. So what it can do is it helps to predict volume numbers, improve timeliness of patient care, all by just looking at different data sets and being able to analyze them. So you learn a lot of things in the program. You can learn how to access and clean very large data sets. And I'm sure you think, oh, cleaning data sets, probably not that bad. You look at the data, there's errors, you fix it. When there's millions of pieces of information and so many rows, it takes a long time, and it is a definite skill to be able to clean them. What you can also do is look at and actually use different platforms which are used in the industry today. So in one of my courses, I got to use a machine learning platform, which is actually used and growing in lots of different organizations, and you can then put that on your resume. So recently, I'm applying to different jobs at the moment. I applied to a job at IBM, and they reached out to me just because I had this one machine learning platform on my resume. You're going to get to use those in your day-to-day courses all the time. So one of my favorite courses was actually the Introduction to Data Analysis course. So in this course, I worked with a group the entire semester to analyze and compare two different data sets and try and put them together to find some hidden information. So we used a machine learning platform for that. And what we looked at was Toronto crime rates and neighborhood statistics census data.
trying to put, first of all, any open data, any census data is horrible to use. I've learned that from it. But being able to compare them, we actually got to draw a picture of different crime rates in the city of Toronto and why those are. So what educational factors are tied to it, and in which part of the city it is, and why, and where resources can go in the future. So it's a very interesting course. So I mean, after you graduate, there are many different areas you can go in. Data analysts, data managers, they can work in every field, government fields, healthcare, finance, marketing, everywhere. But the most important thing is you're going to be able to sit at a table and understand what's going on and be able to work with a lot of different people. So you're going to be able to work with program managers, programmers, other database designers, database managers, and you're going to be able to create meaningful results from your knowledge. So I have a couple pieces of advice. Some of it is echoing probably what other people have said, but the big thing is really take this opportunity to expand your horizons. I came in with zero knowledge of programming, and I came from a liberal arts degree, and I'm here talking about data science. So you definitely can learn these things. Don't be intimidated by these course titles. Try different things. You're going to get a lot out of them if you do. My second piece of advice was also already mentioned, but apply to different conferences and then take use and make use of our amazing alumni network. We have grants that our alumni network has that you can apply for, travel grants, conference grants, and they really want to support you continuing your education and your professional growth outside of the classroom. And just one thing I actually didn't mention, I was also one of the people who applied to the co-op program, got into the co-op program, and then decided not to continue in co-op and stay here and take courses. So if you have any questions about why, if you're not sure about co-op, if it's for you, you can also come and talk to me about that. So if you have any questions, come find me pretty soon, actually. But thank you for listening.
Thank you very much to all of our speakers for doing such an amazing job introducing our concentrations. Now you will each have an opportunity to go learn more about the concentrations by talking to them about, again, maybe more information about courses. Ooh, I just said about courses or any questions that you might have about student life. And yeah, so that will happen now down on one floor down. And then if you are interested in learning about the admission requirements, slide. The admission requirements, hear from our careers officer and financial or money matters. There are going to be 2 sessions happening, starting one at 2 and one at 2:30. You don't have to go to both because they're exactly the same. So you can start downstairs and come back up, or vice versa. It's up to you. But it will be happening in this room, and then the tour will leave from the main lobby at 3:05. Thank you again.
But like, again, like they know that you're coming from an undergraduate, so like they don't expect you to like have like published like. So your like CV is not gonna look like someone like who is like a professor.
The question, yeah, well, I think it was accepted or
No, not. Oh, I'm not saying, yeah, no, me, I wouldn't have introduced these friends. I just know. I would like to. No, I'll hang out and then.
Okay.
And then I mentioned my. That's it. So you're not applying to you're applying to. I wrote that. Oh, okay, great. Oh, I see. Okay, what is what is it? Some verbiage. I'm sure because there's no discussion. But I think we're going to say that. You're not sure. Well, that won't be it. Oh. So I know exactly what they're going to do, and I'm going to say it's going on. Now that everything is settled, and everyone's going off on this and that. But it's kind of like, so going through, and I know it's kind of well. So I'm going to do it. So, yeah, exactly. So in your first term, you have to do the 5 minutes, the aspect. But in my first term, I did the first term. Now, do I say, you know, we should be. I'm not saying it's that I don't miss anything. Yeah. You're saying it so simple. Thank you. I'm glad somebody's working right now. I will go to these students. Basically, a question that anyone has. Yes, sorry.